The Princess and the Human Chapter 31, thank you. That would be all. You may leave, I still have to prepare everything for tomorrow. Kikla gave Kyla a trained smile. The borrowed maid bowed in response, of course, milady. And don't worry, I'm sure the negotiations tomorrow won't be cancelled. Hearing that, the Tystri matriarch looked up. What was that supposed to mean? After the arrival, an ambassador would be given 1 day to get settled, which was today, and afterward, the negotiations started. Those were the proceedings the members of the alliance had agreed on. So what was that maid hinting at? Why would it be cancelled? Oh, haven't you heard? Just this morning. The princess surprisingly cancelled all her appointments for the day. Has she now? That was indeed surprising. The fickle king and queen, sure, they would do something like that on a whim. Princess Silvani though, she was a diligent, hard-working, and reliable person. As much as Kikla didn't like her, she had to give her at least that. Do you know the reason? Only the official one, unfortunately. It's apparently due to a personal emergency. Oh my. I hope it's nothing serious. As I said, I'm sure she won't cancel your appointment tomorrow. If whatever this emergency is were to last more than a day, she should know that and would have contacted you. Kikla shook her head. I don't care about that. The average trade negotiations last for at least 10 days before both parties even start to get somewhere. One measly day won't make an impact. No, I'm more concerned about her. If she does something so out of character, something grave must have happened. Your forbearance is admirable, milady. But, if you excuse my directness, there are certain standards to be upheld. Certainly, the matriarch agreed. But she's still just a person. I'm sure she had good reasons for her actions. A few moments of silence followed. She probably had, Kyla finally said with audible bitterness in her voice. She always has. After she left, Kikla turned off her translator, but still waited a few moments before she addressed her assistant. Your friends sure were right about her love for gossip. Indeed, Kilo agreed. Though I'm sure the fact that she isn't exactly a big fan of the princess and her relative progressiveness contributes to that, true. But still, those are interesting news, don't you think so? Because you might be able to claim delay. Now, don't make a sacrifice before you're done praying. I will of course make the claim should she actually cancel tomorrow, but I'm not betting on that. Living on a different planet was taxing, even if your host provided for you. That in turn meant that longer negotiations put the host in an advantageous position. For that reason, delaying the talks was considered ill-mannered. However, a delay of a single day before the negotiations had even started wouldn't give her much leverage. I'm far more interested in that personal emergency of hers. Do you have an idea what it might be? If it had something to do with her, it wouldn't be just 1 day. The only thing greater than the princess's diligence is her compassion for those dear to her. So, you walking dossier, what people in her life are important enough to her that she would be willing to anger the nobles she was supposed to meet for them? Her assistant thought for a moment. It depends on what exactly happened to that person. But as far as I'm aware, she still hasn't chosen a partner, and none of my friends mentioned any changes in her social circle. So I can only think of her parents and her brother. It's her brother then. If something had happened to the king or queen, everyone would know that. That wasn't good. Albeit slim, there was still a chance that the young prince would inherit the throne, especially if the princess was out of the race for whatever reason. The boy would be a king way easier to manipulate than Silvani, which was only in the Tytri's interest. Contact your friends and see if they know something. If the prince's condition isn't too serious, we might be able to use this as an excuse to finally talk with him, something his sister so far managed to prevent. She leaned back in her chair. There seems to be a lot on the princess's mind right now. Must be stressful to be her. And people, even competent ones like her, are prone to make mistakes when under stress. For days after the hospital visit, Silvani was sitting in her room, a wide screen displaying her brother's face in front of her. They don't allow me to move at all. They say everything I do could injure me. Tomorrow they want to do some surgery, though I didn't understand what exactly they'll do. Not much besides that, so yeah, it's boring as hell. Hell? Silvani asked, slightly confused. What is hell? No idea. Nadine always says that, guess it rubbed off. I see. The doctor said they'll bring you to Vyrminar soon. Yes, in 11 days. Maybe it'll be less boring there. They are better equipped to host patients over long periods. Also, mother and father will probably be able to visit more often than I am. Kirtine shrugged. Had a call with them yesterday. Consisted mostly of father explaining that he was searching for the culprit and what he would do should he find them. Have you told them about Nadine? She asked with a queasy feeling, after that oration. Nah. I figured since they don't know yet, you haven't told them. And you probably had a good reason. That's surprisingly reasonable of you. Since when do you care what's best for others? Since now. Besides, I kind of like the idea of a secret friend. While hearing that was a bit of a relief, she still wasn't sure if she had made the right call back then. Also, was that last sentence something she should worry about? It's time for my checkup, so I have to end it here. Speaking of Nadine, could you get her on as well next time? I'll try, Silvani promised. Immediately after the call ended, she called for Dr. Githay. Anything new regarding Nadine? She asked once the doctor entered. Normally, something like this wouldn't be part of her duties, but since she worked so much with her, Githay had sort of become the go-to person for everything that regarded Nadine. That she cared as much about the small alien as Silvani did contribute to that. Still the same as when you tried to talk to her, the doctor answered dispirited. The door is always locked, and the only thing she says is to not come near her if she answers at all. Does she at least eat? Yes. When the servants leave her plate at her door, she takes it once everyone is gone. I would have liked to examine how adding the meat she gathered to her diet would affect her body. Well, she eats it, so at least Kabut seems to do a good job, she sighed. You know, Your Highness, the servants are surprisingly fond of her. They seem no less concerned about her than we are. So they tried to wait in front of the door, but to no avail. It's like she always knows if someone is there. Because she does, Silgavani explained, remembering the conversation she had with her a while ago. She can hear us breathe. How sensitive is her hearing? A knock at the door interrupted them. Yes, excuse me, Your Highness. His Majesty, your father called earlier, but you were busy talking to your brother. Does he want me to call him back? The maid shook her head. No need, he left you a message. Do you want it verbatim or should I paraphrase it? Depends what exactly you mean by paraphrasing. I mean leaving out some obscenities that were probably caused by a state of emotional agitation. How many? She spent a while looking at her datapad. A lot. I see. A synopsis will suffice then, she nodded. Very well. Your father informs you that he was able to bring the individuum who harmed Prince Kirtine to justice. That didn't sound good. Could you elaborate? Yes. After you met him at the hospital, His Majesty sent an investigation group to the forest, who found the illegal garbage dump shortly after. Wait, there really had been someone dumping their waste there? He also sent the investigation report, which I allowed myself to skim over. The investigators found the origin of the waste to be a company called Gatry Materials. They are led by a noble called Gatmer of Clan Gatry, the third child of Marquis Gatirn and Marchioness Alton, who own the land around the forest. They claim to not be affiliated with their son's company and to know nothing about the waste. Further investigation showed that Gatry Materials produces chemicals that are primarily purchased by pharmaceutical firms. However, about a cycle ago, one chemical that made a large portion of their revenue, and that I'd prefer not to attempt pronouncing, was no longer requested. Due to a new trade deal, his customers switched to a different chemical that produced better results. Said chemical gets imported from Svegplia and can't be produced on Homi. Unable to make up for the loss in revenue, Lord Gatmer tried to cut costs. He decided to save money with waste disposal, switching to a less expensive, but also less legal method. Once she heard of this, Her Majesty immediately pressed charges. Silgvani tilted her head in surprise. My mother? Shouldn't a duke suffice as a judge? If it had been just about the littering, then yes. But since it allegedly caused your brother's injuries, only either of your parents can be the judge, or I, Silgvani quickly said. Since I was given authority over all foreign affairs, I also outrank my brother. Father and mother would never act impartial in this trial. What date is set for the hearing? As long as there was no decisive proof that Kirtin was harmed by specifically this waste, which there wouldn't be unless this guy somehow had accidentally synthesized human sweat, she could say there wasn't enough to prove him guilty. The hearing already happened. The maid stopped her train of thought. Just the littering would have meant a fine, but since Lord Gatmer allegedly endangered the prince's life, he was sentenced to death. His parents tried to appeal, but he was executed on the spot, so they were too late. On the spot? What about the waiting period? In agreement with His Majesty, the Queen decided to not grant him one. A short silence followed, which was then broken by the doctor. The nobles won't like that, presumably, the maid agreed. As she left, the doctor again turned to Silgvani. Your Highness, with all due respect. And in the awareness that I'm technically overstepping my boundaries, is there something I should know? There is, Silgvani answered after a pause. But could you also step out for now? I need a moment. The Princess and the Human, Chapter 32. Dawn had not yet come when Maida left her bed, donned the uniform that had become like a second shell to her, and made her way toward the Star Palace. Unlike the servants working in the Sun or Sky Palace, whose uniforms were predominantly blue, the color of the king, she was donning predominantly green. As was the case for all the others working in the Star Palace. Not only was this symbolic of the fact that they directly served Her Highness, having the entire staff in the color of the princess also showed the changed power dynamic. Ever since she had been given complete authority over Homi's foreign affairs 3 cycles ago, her word could overturn even that of His and Her Majesty when it came to this topic. The estate housing the servants was located on the back side of the palace. It was separate from the main building, but connected via a broad, canopied pathway. Said canopy was laced with a multitude of small, down-facing lights that currently illuminated the otherwise dark route. Despite the early hour, Maida was by far not the only one up. As soon as the head maid stepped through the servants' entrance, she was immediately greeted by the familiar noises of the servants' daily business that the noble inhabitants of the palace never got to hear. After getting the report from the night shift, Maida dismissed them before giving the morning shift their individual tasks. The first one, of course, was cleaning the palace. A delicate job since it needed to be done thoroughly so as to not embarrass Her Highness in front of her guests, quickly so they were done by the time everyone got up, and lastly quietly to not wake anyone up. The latter meant they couldn't use vacuum cleaners or robots since those made too much noise. That was not to say they didn't have those too, they just couldn't be used during the morning duties. And because of that, despite being head maid, Maida herself participated in this task as well. Joining the group that was tasked with the East Wing, she started to dust off the countless pieces of foreign art that decorated the hallways. Among them were paintings, sculptures, and statues from various otherworldly cultures which their planet had acquired, most of them being gifts from other members of the Alliance. As she passed a certain door, she halted for a moment. It was the door that led to Lady Nadine's chamber. Maida couldn't help but wonder, if the alien noblewoman could truly hear them breathe through the door, was there even a point in trying to be quiet? Then again, there was a difference between hearing something when it is quiet and waking up from something. She sighed as she kept looking at the door. 8 days had passed since she had seen it open the last time. Normally, caring for Her Highness's guests was just another task, one of her many duties, nothing more. But with Nadine, things had grown to be different. Since the first day, the young noblewoman had acted in a way that was completely different from what one would expect. In fact, until she learned contrary, Maida was convinced she was a commoner. Since her arrival, she had treated the servants with respect, always asked and never ordered, struck conversations with them, and even went through the trouble of learning all their names. Therefore, ever since the situation had become what it was, she had wanted to help her, not because was ordered to or because it was expected of her, but because she by now actually found herself caring for her. But she didn't know how. After the cleaning was done, a quick glance at the clock told Maida that there was only about 1 inva left until the princess would wake up, so it was due time for her next task. Stepping into the office area, she linked her datapad to the central network and took a look at the messages that had come in during the night. As always, they mostly consisted of companies requesting certain resources or products to be added to existing trade agreements. Ever since Lady Kikla had arrived, most of the requests were about the topic of titanium and that Her Highness should try to make a new deal regarding the metal. With a sigh, Maida quickly skimmed over everything before sorting the messages so that Princess Silgvani would first see those that actually had some form of relevance. She encountered Her Highness on her way out, greeted her with a bow and informed her that today Riken would be the ones tasked with her direct attendance. Her next destination was the kitchen, but before that, she took a short detour to Vassar's office to see if he needed help with something. While the palace's steward hadn't put up any requests on the digital board, it wouldn't hurt to quickly ask him in person, just to make sure. Under Kabut's direction, the kitchen staff hurriedly prepared the food for the palace's employees, while the head chef himself was busy with the meals meant for the princess and her guests. Today, the schedule was completely reserved for the trade negotiations, meaning he had to make both Teistyre and human meals. Grabbing what was meant for her, Maida entered the adjacent break room to have a quick first meal. While she ate, she took advantage of the moment of quietness to make some estimations about the planning for the following days. Today was the 8th day since the ambassador's arrival, and the 6th day of the negotiations. Under normal circumstances, she would predict the talks to continue for at least 3 more days, better assume 5 just to be sure. But considering the difficulties they expected this time, Her Highness, Maida, and Vassar had decided to plan for 15 days. Meaning by now, 9 were left. They had already prepared everything for that time span plus 4 days of buffer, save for some ingredients that couldn't be stored that long. Should it seem like things would take longer than that, they would need to rely on Her Highness to make that call. Stuff acquirable on Homie was no problem, but not everything was. At the current time of the cycle, it would take a fast ship a bit over a day to reach the hyperlane entrance. There was a total of 3 other planets where they could purchase the stuff they might need and that had the according treaties in place. However, one of them was the Tystre's homeworld itself. A quick glance at her datapad proved her memory correct. They were too far away from their entry point to be an option. Depending on which of the others they'd choose, the jump itself would take about 1 more day. Assuming the relays worked, they could then send a message to the planet. She again glanced at her datapad to look up the other planets' estimated positions. Depending on their choice, the cargo ship would either need 5 or 8 days to reach the hyperlane. 8 was too long. The Krasnelv's planet was therefore out of the picture as well. 5 it was, 1 more for the jump back, and since the transport vessel was slower, 2 days to reach Homie. Typing the numbers in the calculator gave her a total of 10 days. And if they didn't want to do everything on the last day, the call for a new shipment had to come in 3 days if needed. It would probably be for the best to remind Her Highness of that. A heavy, salty smell pulled her out of her thoughts. By now, she was able to recognize the fragrance as roasted meat, meaning Cabot was now preparing the meal for Lady Nadine. When she had seen the blood-smeared interior of the shuttle, Maida couldn't understand how someone would deliberately eat something that gave off such a bad odor. The cooked meat, however, she had to admit, smelled at least peculiar. She stood up and walked to the kitchen. Another maid, Gundy, was loading Nadine's first meal onto a tray when Dr. Githey entered. Doctor, Maida greeted her with a quick bow. Here to accompany Gundy, I presume, of course. I still need to examine whether the change in diet had some notable effects on her. A short pause followed. You think she'll open today? The doctor's gaze fell. Probably not. But I'll keep trying, she nodded, not knowing what else to say. As they left, Maida went over the next tasks. Okay, Laixa and Enroll, you two take care of the meals for Her Highness and the ambassador. While they eat, I'll refill the drinks in the conference room. Naki is still busy. Okay, then you take care of the laundry, Essa. Forget the report for now, I'll do that myself later, she sighed. First ones, we should have asked for more than just 2 additional servants. I can take care of the drinks if you want. Surprised by the new voice, Maida turned around. In front of her, holding a water canteen and wearing a blue uniform rather than a green one, was one of the maids that had been called in from the Sun Palace. For some reason, she seemed a bit nervous. Kyla, right? Why are you here? Weren't you supposed to attend Lady Kikla? I am. She has sent me on an errand. Maida crossed her arms. Then I'd say you should probably do that. She is busy talking to Her Highness right now. I have more than enough time to give you a hand. She turned to the door, but Maida stopped her. I don't know if that is how things are done in the Sun Palace, but here, we take the tasks given to us seriously. Kyla scoffed at that. Too bad the same can't be said about respecting your seniors. You might be older than me, but in case you've forgotten, I'm still the head maid. A meaningless title given to a meaningless plebeian. I have you know that I carry the blood of Clan Reslaw, who ruled one of the largest kingdoms before the Unification Wars and played a decisive role in it. Maida's expression hardened. It was true that her being head maid was unusual. Even among servants, the head of staff was usually someone who was of noble birth at least in some way but didn't have any real chances of succession. But that didn't mean that she didn't have a response to that, yes, and who also birthed the infamous Duchess Merla. What, you thought I wouldn't look up the people who get sent here? Your family lost their title before you were even born. You are just as much a commoner as I am. The entire kitchen had fallen silent while the two of them stared at each other. But the tension between them suddenly broke when Kyla took a step back and defensively raised her arms. Sheesh, no need to get so agitated. She turned her back to them and placed the canteen back on the counter. I saw you were tight on time and thought you might appreciate some help. Was just an offer, you don't have to take it. Later that day, Silgvani was sitting at the desk in her bedroom. Staring blankly, she had spaced out a little while rubbing her forehead. SAS, her brother's voice shouted out of the datapad, pulling her back into reality. Right now was a scheduled pause in today's talks, which she had decided to use to call her brother. Once he got transferred to Vyerminar, which was on the literal other side of the planet, calls like this would become difficult. I'm sorry. What were you saying? Is everything all right? Concern coming from her brother, the things she was allowed to witness. Yes, don't worry. Just a little headache. Is Nadine there today? Sorry, no, come on. Is she that busy? That's not it. The princess took a deep breath. Ever since she came back, she has locked herself in her room and lets nobody in. Huh? Why? She is scared. After what happened to you, she's afraid it'll happen again. That's bullshit, Silgvani blinked, that is. What? Her word. Whatever, just let me talk to her, he insisted. We've been trying that for 8 days, she answered with a sigh. She doesn't even answer the door. Have you tried the window? Window? Yes, her window that's facing the garden, it's always open. That's how I usually get in. Of course you do, she said sarcastically. Oh, shut up. You want to help her or not? Since when was her brother so assertive? I can't believe I'm actually doing this, Silgvani murmured while shaking her head. Okay, I'm in the garden. What now? Go along the wall. Don't use the path, you have to walk on the grass. Make slow, long steps, and make sure not to step on dry leaves. Once you are past the orange Lyska bush, hold your breath. Mess up any of those and she'll hear you coming. I'll mute the call till you're there. I can't believe I'm actually doing this, she repeated quietly. Avoiding the leaves wasn't too difficult. However, the distance between the bush and the window wasn't small. But for what could be the first time in her life, Silvani was thankful for her tall body, as her long legs allowed her to bridge the distance just before she ran out of air. Hey, she panted as she reached her destination. Immediately, Nadine's head snapped in her direction. Not even a tig later she was sitting on the opposite side of the room, her back pressing against the wall. Relax, I won't hurt you, she tried to calm her down. However, her joke didn't seem to get appreciated. You know what might happen, she answered with a tired-sounding voice. Yes, it may happen that I molt a bit early. I'm close, remember. The small alien closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Please leave. I will, Silvani affirmed with a nod. She then reached into the room and leaned her datapad against the wall under the window so the video call was visible. But he won't. As soon as she stepped away from the opening, she could hear some shuffling in the room. Kirteen? Kirteen. Oh my God, how are you? I'm so sorry. Are you all right? No, I'm not, her brother's voice answered. I'm bored. I wanted to speak with you all the time. Why didn't you let anyone in? But what happened to you was an accident. And it only happened because I clung to you for multiple invis. Yet you act as if we'll fall over dead just because you touch us once. It can still happen again. My strength is also well, then I guess you just have to be careful. I mean, be honest, how many people did you touch since you got here? Well, there was that one time with Lizo and did anything happen to him? I think not. See. First ones, when did I become the voice of reason? Silvani scowled a bit at her brother's harsh tone. Then again, maybe that helped. In any case, she had to go back now, so she decided to leave the two alone. The sun had set and the ambassador had left the palace when Silvani heard a knock on her door. It was Maida, the Star Palace's head maid, who seemed happy, for some reason. Did something good happen? Indeed, Your Highness, she answered and gave her a datapad. Said datapad had a video call on it, showing the face of a certain alien. I must thank you. Also, I am sorry for the last week. It's fine, Silvani assured her, not asking what a week was. The important thing is that you're coming out again. Well, somewhat, this time, the small alien actually chuckled a bit. I just don't want to risk it. But I agree that this can't go on. Therefore, I would like to ask for a few things, some of which might get pricey. Money is not an issue, Silvani insisted, gesturing for Maida to take notes. Go on. First, I would like to resume and double my language lessons. Okay. A bit of a slow start, but she said there would be multiple things, so whatever. Secondly, once I can write, I want someone who can teach me your programming language. With that one, Nadine had lost her, so Silvani simply nodded along. Lastly, I need to speak to the dressmaker ASAP. Sure, why not? What by the first ones was she planning now? The Princess and the Human, Chapter 33. The rain was drumming against the window of the workshop, and with the same rhythm, Ocean tapped his fingers on his desk. The tabletop consisted entirely of a large screen, as the whole thing essentially was a big datapad. Currently, it showed his newest design. Or what would be his newest design had he actually started creating it? For now, it simply showed an empty slate, just as it had been doing for the past 6 invis he had spent staring at the thing without any progress. Ocean sighed. Why did he have to make something so boring? Well, he knew why. Because bills didn't pay themselves. Unfortunately, his motivation was at an all-time low. It was like having the most exquisite meal imaginable. Whatever you ate afterward, even if you liked it, would taste dull. The sound of the door opening behind him made him look up. Yes, a message from Lord Venga. his assistant announced. He's asking about the status of his order. Tell him I'm waiting for some materials. I doubt lying to him is wise. Ozhen shrugged. It's done when it's done. Pestering me about it won't change that. He leaned back in his chair and looked up to the ceiling. I want to make something for Lady Nadine again. She made me rediscover a spark I didn't know I had lost, that alien noblewoman you told me about. It hasn't even been 10 days since you finished the last of her orders. And that's only because you put everything else on hiatus. Otherwise you'd still be working on it. You can't expect me to turn for some scraps if there is a feast right in front of me. I have no idea what you're talking about. That's because you weren't there. You didn't hear what I heard. Apparently, for their kind, clothes are no mere accessories but an integral part of their culture. Everyone wears them down to the poorest of the poor. Oh, the things she told me. They know more different types of clothing than I have clothes created in my life. She talked about novelties even the high nobility of Homi has never heard about. They have countless different design philosophies for numerous occasions. He shook his head. After our talk, I thought I had found new inspiration, but once I was done with her stuff, I was empty. I need to know more. Human fashion is a treasure trove waiting to be uncovered. If I could incorporate their knowledge into my designs, I could without doubt spark a fashion revolution at least 10 times in a row. Oh, what would I give for a chance to talk to her again? After his monologue was finished there was silence, the only thing audible being the rain outside. A couple of moments passed before his assistant spoke again. Well, then I guess you're in luck. She is requesting your services once more, he sighed. Since you won't get anything else done anyway, I'll clear your schedule so you can go there tomorrow. That was at least what Ozhen assumed the end of the sentence to be. He himself couldn't hear it because, by the time his assistant had finished talking, he was already out in the rain, making a beeline towards the palace. Maida stood in front of Her Highness's office, the same spot as she usually did. She was half certain that the carpet would by now have footprints at this spot, would it not get scrubbed daily. As she usually did, she raised her hand, knocked, and waited for the command to enter. A command that didn't come. She knocked again. Nothing. That was not what usually happened. Your Highness, she asked carefully, but to no avail. Your Highness, she repeated with more force in her voice. Huh. Wah, a muffled voice came from inside. Oh, see, come in. That was not what she usually heard. Carefully opening the door, she found the princess sitting at her desk. All 4 of her elbows were resting on the table, her face buried in her hands. Is everything all right, Your Highness? Why yes, I'm fine, she groaned. Half an inva until Lady Kikla comes over to continue our talks. I still need to finish the drafts. She started counting on her fingers. I also need to go over the proposal from Lord Askeep, and, as she spoke, her upper right hand started to tremble. After a few moments, she realized it herself, grabbing the wrist with her lower left hand and forcing her hand onto the desk. And taking deep breaths until the trembling subsided. Actually, no, I am not fine. Please go ask the doctor if she has anything against headaches. They've been getting worse the last couple of days. With a quick bow, the head maid turned on her heel and returned to the corridor. The princess's room, her office, and the doctor's office were all located in close proximity to each other, so it was a short walk. The door, on the other hand, was locked, implying that Dr. Githay wasn't there right now. On one hand, Her Highness hadn't explicitly stated the urgency of her request. Then again, Her Highness's well-being always had top priority. As such, Maida hesitated for not more than a moment before pressing the emergency button. It didn't take long until the person in question came running. Doctor, Maida greeted her while the doctor was still catching her breath. Her Highness laments severe headaches and requests medication. I somewhat expected that, she responded as she unlocked the door, needing but a moment to procure the item in question. This will ease the pain, but not completely suppress it. Not what I would like to give her, but the stronger stuff would require her to lie down and rest, and I know she won't do that. Tell her to take 3 drops now and then every 4 invis. And that I told her all the stress would lead to problems like this. Nodding, Maida made her way back, placing the medicine on the princess's desk. The dosage is 3 drops now and then every 4 invis, she repeated. Thank you. I was also asked to remind you that earlier advice from Dr. Githe already informed you that the stress you subject yourself to would sooner or later catch up to you. I know, she groaned. Once the negotiations are over, I'll take it a bit easier. HHH. Did she tell you how long this stuff takes to take effect? Unfortunately, no. But speaking of Lady Kikla, do you expect the talks to take longer than planned? We would have to make the new order at the latest tomorrow. I'll tell you tonight. Very well. Leaving the office once more, she made her way to the entrance hall, so she could welcome Lady Kikla, who would arrive soon. Apparently even sooner than expected, because she could hear the doorbell before she even reached her destination. Odd, that was way too early. But as she opened the door, rather than the Taistri ambassador, Avanari, out of breath and drenched in rainwater, looked at her. Yes? She asked, doing her best to mask her emotions and stay professional. You messaged me, regarding a new order, from Lady Nadine, he panted. We did, she affirmed. We asked you to message us back and propose a date. Exactly. Yet you are here. I propose now as a date, so it would seem. Unfortunately, I must inform you that, actually, wait a moment. She took out her datapad and informed Enroll that it would be his job to welcome the ambassador today. All right. If you follow the wall leftward, you'll reach a servant's entrance. I will await you there. As fast as he could through his exhaustion, Ocean ran along the left wall until he reached a small door, which promptly opened. Please come in. I apologize for the inconvenience, but we are expecting guests, so getting water all over the entrance hall was out of the question. It's fine, he panted. Now that he was out of the rain, he realized that his body felt fairly hot. Without the rain cooling him down, he might have actually overheated and would have needed a doctor. Maybe he had gotten a bit too enthusiastic. Well, it didn't matter, he was here now. Lady Nadine is free at the moment, right? He asked while drying himself off with a towel given to him. She should be. Although she might be training at the moment, her routine in that regard is a bit irregular, she explained, signing him to follow her. Training, Lady Nadine's homeworld has much stronger gravity than ours. According to her, she needs to exercise a lot, or her muscles will deteriorate. Oh, so she is a doctor? No, she simply knows a lot. Not elaborating any further, the maid stopped and knocked at the door in front of her. Yes, a soft, muffled voice came from inside. A voice Ocean knew he would never forget in his life. The dressmaker is here, milady, already? Did I forget the appointment? No, he is simply very motivated. Okay. 1 SEC, a multitude of shuffling noises was heard until the call to come in followed. The maid opened the door, and he was finally able to meet the source of his inspiration again. He immediately ran into the room. Careful, there is. About halfway to her, he got stopped dead in his tracks with a donk. A glass plate, the maid finished her warning. Noted, he grunted as he stood up again. 2 of his hands hurt a little, but otherwise, he seemed unharmed. May I ask why? Precaution, the soft voice of the alien noblewoman answered, her voice audible through some holes in the glass he now noticed. I apologize, but I don't want to take any risks. This is actually part of the reason why I asked you to come here. First, I need a pair of gloves. A moment of silence followed. Gloves? He asked, feeling his motivation slip away. Yes. Is that a problem? And no, of course not, milady. I was just hoping for something. Well, I'm not one to usually make mere protective gear. Fashion, that is my craft. The alien tilted her head. While these particular ones are indeed supposed to be protective in nature, who says gloves can't be fashionable? He immediately perked up. They can, sure. Sleeve gloves, for example. are often paired with sleeveless dresses. There are also those weird half gloves, though I admit, I was never really into those. Go on then. What exactly do you need? He had to learn more about this. Even if the ones she needed were protective gloves, maybe he could combine them with these fashion gloves. My body emits a substance called sweat that shouldn't come into contact with a vanillary shell. Unfortunately, if they are just completely sealed, I will sweat like crazy in them, which kinda defeats the point. They need to stop the sweat, but let air through so the heat can escape. Is that doable? Ocean was no scientist, he only knew about normal fabrics. If that annoying shoe ad is to be believed, yes. I'd prefer to eventually have an entire suit, but for the sake of speed, gloves will suffice for now. He nodded. I see. But please tell me more about the suit you were imagining. Oh, well, in essence, just like the gloves, but full body. Maybe leave out the feet, I doubt anyone will touch those, and I can lose a lot of excess heat through those. As long as does that, I'm good. Ocean shook his head. No, we can't have that. Protection's all well and good, but you still need to be presentable. Depending on how the material works, maybe patterns can be integrated during the crafting. Then again, a one piece won't look good like that. Maybe it's for the best to make it neutral, either completely black or white and then combine it with accessories. Or, if it's a bit more tight-fitting, you could wear normal clothes over it and, I'm sure you'll think of something. She interrupted his train of thought. Right. I'll have to make some calls regarding the material, but it will be done. Oh, and one more thing. He stepped closer to the glass. I would be willing to give you a discount. But in return, you must tell me everything there is about your home world's fashion. The alien thought for a moment. Sure, I don't mind. You have a number I could call or something? We can't do it now? Ocean asked, slightly disheartened. Well, you wanted to hear everything, right? I could spend an entire day just talking about hats. Don't get me started on shoes. Hats? Was there any protective gear they hadn't turned into fashion? If there was so much to say just about those, how much could she tell him about clothes for the actual body? I promise, he started, only now realizing that he was pressing his body against the glass. I will fulfill all future orders with priority and will never ask for money. But please, I need to hear everything. The talks continued, and they continued to be fruitless. Silvani had tried to nudge the discussions toward the topic she was actually interested in a few times now, but so far to no avail. She couldn't be too obvious about it, so she needed to be patient. Something her headaches didn't help her with. She could also feel herself getting increasingly agitated, and the hammering pain in her head made it hard to stay professional. Come on, I always stayed calm in these situations, she told herself, though I must say, the rain is slightly annoying. You went from the lodging directly to the shuttle and from there to the palace. You can't have gotten more than a few drops. I hope it won't stay like this. I'm afraid it will. We are reaching the rainy season. The rain will start to fall more and more often, and in about 30 days, the rain won't stop at all for another 50 days. Well, then let's hope we are finished until then. Yes. We wouldn't want you to be forced to stay in a house specifically built for your people and made to accommodate any possible need any longer than necessary. But in general, that is something that needs to be addressed, don't you think so? You live on a planet where less than half of the land is habitable. You know as well as me that the rain doesn't bother you in the slightest. Maybe you should adapt the structure of your cities to better address such problems. Maybe you shouldn't act as if irrelevant banalities are problems, and rather than seek excuses to act as if you got insulted over nothing, stop being so secretive as to why you are suddenly hogging all your or for yourself. Then we wouldn't need to go through any of this. Wait, did I just say that out loud? Lady Kikla, she started in a desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Your Highness, the ambassador interrupted her, you don't seem to be fully yourself today. Maybe you should rest, and we continue tomorrow. Without waiting for an answer, she stood up and left, leaving a disheartened princess behind. How could I make a faux pas like that? she scolded herself. I keep foreign politics away from my parents to prevent exactly things like that. How could I allow this to happen? Oh, first ones, my head is killing me. The Princess and the Human, Chapter 34, both Kilo, who was currently once again posing as her guard, and the borrowed maid Kyla turned their heads in surprise as Kikla exited the conference room much sooner than expected. She ignored them, making a beeline towards the entrance hall and then her shuttle. Since she didn't know for how long she would still be able to keep her emotions in check, she didn't want to spend any more time than necessary in the palace for now. Overcoming their initial surprise, her two servants hurried after her. Is there something wrong, milady? Her handyman asked once he had caught up. Kikla realized how stiff her steps were right now, but that couldn't be helped. One couldn't exactly hurry leisurely. Especially not while being extremely agitated, trying to downplay said fact as far as possible, and also maintaining a dignified posture. Her Highness doesn't feel well at the moment, she answered after a short pause. She had tried to sound as calm as possible, but despite her best efforts, there was still a small shaking left in her voice that she didn't manage to suppress, which agitated her even further. By the goddess, talking really wasn't a good idea right now. Do you want me to claim delay, milady? Kyla immediately chimed in. She sounded almost eager. While it normally would have been nice to see another confirmation of how the borrowed maid was completely on her side now. Right now she couldn't have it, not for a mere half a day. And now shut up until we are back at the cottage, leaving the palace in a way that she could only hope didn't look like her angrily stomping out of the door. She was past the point where she could have evaluated it herself. She walked through the rain she couldn't care less about and entered the shuttle. Still not wanting to risk anything, she tried to keep up a calm demeanor during the flight. It was a bit easier now since she didn't have to move. Kilo had taken a hint, and Kyla was in the cockpit. Thankfully, the flight was short. Holding her facade just a little bit longer, the matriarch entered the building, ignored the three bowing servants, and rushed toward her office. That will be all for now, she said to Kyla, who left with a quick bow. After the door closed, Kikla waited a bit longer before taking off her translator and placing it on her desk. One deep breath and, damn it, she screamed, finally allowing herself to vent her anger. So something did happen, Kilo inferred, taking off his translator as well. Really? What gave you the impression? Did our plan not work? No, it did. That's exactly the problem. She was still fuming, but now that she had been able to vent a little, she managed to calm down a bit. The plan had been simple: use Kyla to repeatedly dilute the princess's drink with unpurified water to give her a slight calcium poisoning. Not enough to cause any real harm, but giving her headaches to disrupt her concentration so she would slip up and say something she could capitalize on. No one would see the symptoms as an attack, even if the calcium would be discovered. Due to the low amount, they would just think something went wrong in the purification process. And surely, after a few days, the princess had indeed slipped up. Just as planned, there was just one little caveat she hadn't planned for. The gravity of the slip-up was far greater than she had predicted. How did I not see the signs? She had been subtle about it, but in hindsight, there had been hints I should have picked up sooner. What exactly is the problem? Her handyman asked after giving her a short pause. Kikla took a seat. She's trying to find out why we stopped exporting our metal. Isn't that the same for all of the dash? No. You don't get it. It's fake. It's all fake. She has no plan of forming any agreements with us. It's all just a farce. By the goddess, how did I not notice it? She doesn't simply want to know, like the rest, she is dead set on finding out. If she won't get it out of me, she'll try something else. Drained, the Taistri matriarch leaned back. As long as she lives, that is. So we are really doing it? She nodded. We have no choice. I hoped it wouldn't get to that point, but if she finds out the truth, our people are done for. I told her that as a sign of my goodwill, I would cancel our talks for tomorrow so she can rest. Tell Kyla to use that window of opportunity to finish it. Do you think she is at that point already? She agreed so far, but there is a difference between causing someone headaches and regicide. Then convince her, Kikla grunted. Make her believe that there is no risk for her because the calcium will make it look like an accident. If that's still not enough, coerce her. We can prove that she poisoned the princess, while she has nothing to prove our involvement. We could simply claim that we got wary after the princess got worse and investigated ourselves. She's just a commoner, her word is worth nothing. I don't care what it takes, just make her do it and then tie up loose ends, as you wish, milady. 20th day after my arrival. Dear Diary, it's been a while since my last entry. The last few days were difficult. It's my fault what happened to Kirteen, even if everyone tells me otherwise. I knew I should have been aware this could happen. I have to be careful if I don't want to be like an elephant in a porcelain store. It's all why was I so careless? And yet, they all seem to forgive me. I don't know what I did to deserve these people. Even Kirteen. Why doesn't he hate? He has every reason to be angry at me. I robbed him of years of his childhood. They said it might take him up to 6 cycles to fully recover, so more than 3 years. That is a lot for a child. Yet he is hell-bent on getting me back on track. I don't know what I would do without all of them, but this time, I will be more careful, okay? Maybe the glass plate was a bit much. I might not even need any of the protective gear I ordered. But I'm scared. What if I become careless again? What if next time, it'll be too late? A knock on her door pulled Silgvani out of her stupor. She was currently sitting on the couch in her room, her face covered by her hands. Her head felt like it was about to split apart, her arms were shaking whenever they weren't resting on something, and since today, she had even started to have occasional muscle spasms. What was worse, the medicine the doctor had given her didn't seem to help at all. Or, if it did, she didn't want to know how bad it would be without it. Come in. The door opened and Maida entered. I'm sorry to disturb your day off, the head maid apologized, but something came. Your Highness, you were supposed to rest. She seemingly had seen the data pad lying on the short table in front of her. I did, Silgvani defended. Mostly. Is your headache better? No, it's worse than ever. The why? Don't you rest? It has reached a point where even the ambassador is concerned for your health. She stepped closer and grabbed the data pad. You are free to punish me for insubordination later, but for now, I'll be taking this. Silgvani was too drained to argue with her. Fine, she grumbled. But didn't you come in for something else? Ah, right. Earlier today, I encountered Kyla. You know, the maid you called in from the Sun Palace to give to Lady Kikla. She claimed that the ambassador sent her on an errand. But just now, the lady called to complain that Kyla has been missing the entire day. When asked, she didn't know anything about an errand. Huh, that is indeed strange. Then she tried to stand up, but another surge of pain made her fall back into her seat. Okay, not I. But have someone look into this. Since she apparently left her post, you are allowed to restrain her if necessary. I will, Your Highness. Do you need anything else? Silgvani thought for a moment. Actually, yes. Call Nadine. I could use the distraction, and talking to her always calms me down. Very well. This is not just a plot to get your datapad back, right? She shook her head. Nothing like that. It's been 4 days since she started to get better again. I'd like to try to get her out of her room. Don't know if she will be fine with it, but I'll try. Do that. Oh, and one more thing. She pointed to her cupboard. Some water, please. Just sitting there without doing anything robbed her of her feeling of time, and the pain in her head didn't help with that. But finally, she heard a knock. Your Highness, a soft voice asked. Nadine. You came. Despite her pain, Silgvani could hear the happiness in her own voice. The relief she felt even seemed to numb the ache for a moment. How do you feel? I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. Don't be, the small alien insisted, taking a seat across from her. The shaking of both her voice and her hands showed that she was still nervous about having contact with others again. I know you are doing this for me. Maida cleared the way so I didn't encounter anyone. And once the dressmaker finishes my suit, I'll probably have fewer inhibitions. Honestly, I'm aware that even this is more me coping than an actual necessity, but I just don't want to hurt anyone by accident anymore. You have been through much, so I understand. And yet, you still followed my selfish request to meet you so late at night. Nadine landed back in her seat, which looked pretty adorable considering her feet didn't touch the ground. I can't stress enough how thankful I am for everything. I don't know how long it'll take until I really overcome my trauma, if that'll ever happen at all, that is. I still have the occasional nightmare, but I don't want to imagine how much worse off I would be without you. Honestly, I'd hug you if that wouldn't kill you. If I may be direct, it's just the two of us. Be as direct as you wish. It is as if you had become my big sister. Silvani chuckled, only for another surge of pain to interrupt her. Still, no, she had the right to hear it. A big sister, HM? Tell me, how old do you think I am, huh? I don't know, early to mid-20s? Sorry, that's, around 40 cycles. A moment of silence followed before Silvani burst into laughter. It hurt to laugh, but she still kept laughing. She simply couldn't help it. 40 cycles. Guess that's what it looks like to a human. Was I off? I'm sorry, I just thought. No need to apologize. But, yes, you were off. She took a deep breath. As of now, I am 11 cycles old. Nadine blinked a couple of times before answering. You are younger than me? Wait, 11 cycles. You are 7, in absolute numbers, yes. But make no mistake, I am an adult in every sense of the word. What you just said, 40 cycles, no Venery ever got that old. The small alien just stared at her in disbelief. That means, Silvani nodded, you will outlive me. And not just barely, but by many generations. You will likely still be in your prime by the time my great-grandchildren are born. After that, there was a long pause. Well, it was a lot to take in. So Silvani couldn't falter 4-HH. This time, the pain was so unbearable that she even lost control over her voice, like when she got angry. Why, Your Highness, are you all right? No, headaches. She tried to hold herself on the armrest, but another muscle spasm made her slip. And that wasn't all, she started to have trouble breathing, and something in her chest started to hurt as well. Your Highness, this isn't just stress anymore. You need to see the doctor, now. You're right. Silvani stood up, but even standing straight caused trouble for her. In the end, she managed to wobble towards the wall and used it as a crutch to slowly go forward, until she finally reached the door. It was locked. Why was it locked? There was no key in the lock. Was it locked from the outside? Before she could ponder the question any further, the handle escaped her grasp. The sight of the floor coming closer was the last thing she saw before her vision went black. The Princess and the Human, Chapter 35. That would be all from my part. Unless you have anything to add, Lady Githey. Githey suppressed a sigh as the two of them kept walking through the hallways. Lord Jarkina, I am by no means here to undermine your authority, she insisted to the head physician of the Kalhanar Hospital. Her Highness simply wishes that the transport of her brother happens without any trouble. I am more than sufficient to ensure that, the head physician retorted. Tell her that. I am simply following her orders. Or do you want me to ignore them? Oh, of course not. I'm just saying that sending 2 doctors of, at least comparable qualifications are excessive. Githey once again didn't let her feelings show. She knew Dr. Jarkina was fully aware that their qualifications were more than just comparable. But as the royal physician, she technically outranked him despite her being only a baroness. Most nobles, especially those from older clans, usually didn't like that. Granted, she didn't know for sure if that was really what had ticked him off. She might have told him otherwise, but the fact that she was here insinuated that Her Highness didn't fully trust his abilities. Maybe she should have answered in a less confrontational manner. I agree, it is a bit much. But please, don't understand this as her mistrusting you. She is simply worried about her brother. I'd wish she would treat her own health with the same level of care. But as long as I am her subordinate, all I can do is give her my advice. If she insists on not following it, there is nothing I can do, and to be completely honest, she has been under a lot of stress lately, so don't hold it against her. Aside from Jarkina was the answer. I guess you are right. Besides, it might not be that excessive after all. Since we are approaching the long rain, the weather is a bit unstable. The shuttle will be forced to fly slower, so in the worst case, it might take us an entire day to reach Vierminar. We can take turns in monitoring his condition. A good idea. Oh, first ones, get a room you two. The sudden call from the sickbed reminded the two that they weren't alone. They had been walking alongside the assistants who were currently in the process of transporting the young prince to the landing platform. Apparently, as the discussion had grown a bit heated, both of them had forgotten about their surroundings. I apologize. Your Highness, Jarkina said with a bow. The behavior I displayed was highly unprofessional. Likewise, Githey added. I am not familiar with the phrase you used though, so I assume it's from Nadine, and maybe, figured, Githey chuckled. Maybe she should one day ask the small alien what some of her more curious idioms meant. Say, Your Highness, you wouldn't happen to know what the request to get a room is supposed to convey? No. Nadine said she'd explain it when I'm older. When he was older? Why would one's age be a relevant factor in that? Well, that was a topic for a different day. For now, they had reached the ambulance shuttle. While the assistants carried the injured prince inside, Githey and Jarkina did one final check that they had everything. Kirtine's injuries were almost entirely external, so they didn't need many monitoring devices. The most important things were bandages, hardening agents, and Larca resin, in case a new tear opened in his shell. I guess the silver lining is that he only touched Nadine with his front side. Thanks to that, he can at least more or less safely lie on his back. Let's hope we don't get caught in a storm. There shouldn't be one according to the forecast, but flying to the other side of the planet was a long journey. The flight was mostly uneventful up until around 10 Invis after the start. Kirtine had fallen asleep a while ago when the datapad of the head physician gave off a message sound. Something important? Githey asked, more for the sake of small talk than actual interest. Lab report, her colleague murmured. Her Highness managed to acquire a sample of the unknown substance that put the prince in this situation. Ah, right, that story, Githey thought. Though I wasn't aware she sent in a sample of Nadine's sweat. Well, I wanted to do a thorough analysis myself, so I won't complain. Could you send me the report later? Sure. Okay, let's see. Water-based solution, containing traces of ammonia, potassium, sodium chloride, something that is unknown but potentially toxic, a variety of salts. What in the world is that concoction? Githey did her best not to chuckle at that remark. What her colleague would say if he knew the true origin of this. Just what were they trying to achieve with this? He mumbled as he kept reading. Or was it maybe a byproduct? But even then, what was the HM? What by the first ones? The sudden outcry made Githey perk up. That reaction after already going through the previous contents. Was there something Nadine hadn't told her? What does it say? She carefully asked. The solution contains an insane variety of microbes. All of them unknown. A plethora of bacteria, viruses, and something uncategorized, pathogenic, questioned, shocked by what she had just heard. It wasn't that rare that a species had one or two types of symbiotic microbes in their body, but this amount, And what was the unidentifiable thing? Probably not. I mean, His Highness is fine, right? I will definitely give this to the Vyrminar hospital, but we examined His Highness often and thoroughly. We would have noticed if he had shown any symptoms. That was true. Maybe it didn't affect them because they were used to Nadine's organism, which was so fundamentally different from the Vannery. Still, she needed to look into this, just to be sure. They reached the planet's capital, the great city of Vyrminar, after a bit under a day. Sleeping in the shuttle hadn't exactly offered the most satisfying rest, but the prince's well-being was more important at the moment. After Kirtin had safely reached his new hospital room, Jarkina announced that he would stay for a few days to make sure everything went over smoothly. Githey, on the other hand, went back immediately to not be absent from the palace for too long. The ride home was expected to go faster because there was no need to fly as carefully as before. Despite being tired, Githey did her best to stay awake so as to not mess up her sleep cycle. But apparently, she had dozed off for a moment as the pilot's voice tore her out of her stupor. "Milady, MH? What? It's now the 17th Inva in Kalhanar. You wanted me to tell you." Yes, thank you. If they went by schedule, which was to be expected, the negotiations should have a break right now. As Githey issued a call to the Star Palace, the servant in charge informed her that Her Highness was indeed free at the moment, and after a short waiting period, the princess's face appeared on the screen. "Doctor," she greeted. "Is there an issue?" "Not so far, Your Highness. I merely wanted to inform you that your brother's transport went over without any problems." "That's good to hear. Do you know when you will return?" "Probably not until tonight. You will likely be already in bed by then. But I also called for another reason." "How are your headaches?" With a worried expression, the princess took a long pause before answering. "In all honesty, it's been getting worse. During yesterday's negotiations, I did exactly what I wanted to prevent from happening. And I don't feel like the medicine is working." "No effect?" Sure, she had given the princess a weaker version of the medicine, but there still should have been a noticeable improvement. Maybe the headaches weren't from the stress. But what then? Headaches were unfortunately a symptom that could have a plethora of causes. Did you notice anything else? I don't think so. That wasn't helpful. Can you cancel the talks for the rest of the day? Actually, today aren't any. Lady Kikla proposed a day off so I could rest. Githey needed a moment to process what she just heard. The Tystri ambassador, yes. Your condition is so bad that even the Tystri ambassador proposed a break, yes. Then I hope you are taking it. Treat yourself with care. If it gets worse, don't hesitate to call for another doctor. I don't know how long exactly the rest of the flight will take, but if you're still awake when I come back, I will take a closer look. If not, come to me first thing in the morning." The sun had long disappeared when Githey finally reached the Star Palace. Tired from the long flight, she entered through the side entrance and made her way to the west wing. While the lights in the corridor were still on, not a single servant was in sight around the princess's room. This could only mean Her Highness had already gone to sleep. There was also no one waiting for her. Relieved that it at least hadn't gotten worse, and glad that the princess had gone to bed early for once, Githey entered her office, and through it her private chambers. Her tiredness won as soon as she laid down and she fell asleep. She didn't know how long she had been sleeping. All she knew was that a loud and obnoxious beeping noise made her wake up. Why was her alarm clock going off? It was still the middle of the night. No, this wasn't her alarm clock. This was the emergency alert. Great, so it wasn't enough for Prince Kirtin to annoy her during the day, now he even had to rob her of her night's rest. And the worst part? To make sure she wouldn't miss it, she had made it so the alarm wouldn't stop on its own. She actually had to get up and open the door to turn it off. Wait, Kirtin was at the hospital. In an instant, she was fully awake and practically jumped out of her bed. Whoever this was, if they pressed the emergency button in the middle of the night. It was important. She was just about to leave her bedroom when suddenly, she froze upon hearing some sort of impact, so violent that it made the floor vibrate. What by the first ones was that, a second impact made her overcome the moment of shock. She ran through her small living room, but her left foot got caught on the doorstep. She stumbled into her office and fell to the ground, which was luckily cushioned by the soft carpet. Just as she pulled up her head and looked towards the entrance, the third impact hit. With the sound of metal failing its duty, the lock got ripped out of the doorframe. The door burst open, crashing into the adjacent wall with so much force that the upper hinge broke apart. In the corridor, there stood Nadine, 1 foot raised. The door and lock were, had been, reinforced, just like all doors in the palace. Had she seriously just kicked it open? But before Githey could voice her bafflement, she noticed the princess's unconscious body draped over the small alien's shoulder.